Beneath the inky blanket of a moonless night, an eerie silence enveloped the small, forgotten town of Whispering Pines. It was the kind of silence that prickled the skin, leaving an unsettling tension in the air. The skeletal branches of ancient trees swayed gently, casting long, twisted shadows that danced like sinister specters under the feeble glow of the streetlights. In the heart of this forsaken town stood an old, decrepit mansion, once a symbol of grandeur and opulence. Its walls, now weathered and cracked, whispered tales of a bygone era. The mansion had long been abandoned, its windows shattered, and doors creaking with each gust of wind. But it was not the mansion itself that held the town in a grip of fear. It was the stories that surrounded it. Legends spoke of a dog, a massive black hound with eyes that gleamed like molten lava. This beast, they said, was no ordinary dog, but a harbinger of doom. Those who had seen it claimed that its presence heralded death and despair. Yet, for many years, the hound had remained unseen, a mere figment of local folklore. But all that changed on a fateful autumn night, when a dense fog rolled into Whispering Pines, shrouding the town in an impenetrable veil. It was on this night that the dog, known as Shadow, would make its presence known once more. Maggie, a young woman with a heart full of curiosity, had recently moved to Whispering Pines. Drawn by the allure of the mansion and the tales it harbored, she decided to explore its dark corridors. Armed with only a flashlight and a sense of adventure, she ventured into the mansion, unaware of the horrors that awaited her. As Maggie stepped through the creaking front door, the air grew colder, and an uneasy feeling settled in her gut. She flicked on her flashlight, its weak beam cutting through the darkness, revealing the decaying interior of the mansion. The walls were adorned with faded portraits, their eyes seemingly following her every move. Cobwebs hung like tattered curtains, and the floorboards groaned under her weight. With each step, the suspense grew, as if the mansion itself was alive, watching and waiting. The sound of her footsteps echoed through the empty halls, mingling with the distant wails of the wind. Maggie's heart pounded in her chest, but she pressed on, determined to uncover the truth behind the legends. As she reached the grand staircase, a chilling howl pierced the silence, freezing her in her tracks. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, sending shivers down her spine. Gathering her courage, she continued up the stairs, the flashlight trembling in her hand. The upper floor was even more decrepit than the first, with broken furniture and shattered mirrors scattered about. Maggie's breath quickened as she ventured deeper into the mansion, her flashlight flickering ominously. Suddenly, a pair of glowing red eyes appeared in the darkness, staring straight at her. Fear gripped her, but before she could react, the eyes vanished, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Maggie's mind raced, her thoughts a whirlwind of terror and confusion. She knew she had to leave, but the mansion seemed to have other plans. As she turned to flee, the air grew thick with an unnatural chill, and a low growl rumbled through the halls. Shadow, the hound of legends, emerged from the darkness, its massive form blocking her path. The beast's eyes burned with an otherworldly intensity, and its fangs glistened like ivory daggers. Maggie backed away, her mind screaming for her to run, but her legs refused to obey. The hound's growls grew louder, reverberating through the mansion, and the air seemed to crackle with malevolent energy. Desperation clawed at her throat as she searched for an escape, but the mansion's labyrinthine corridors seemed to stretch on endlessly. As Shadow advanced, Maggie's flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. The hound's eyes were the only source of light, casting an eerie red glow that bathed the walls in a hellish hue. She stumbled backward, her breath coming in ragged gasps, but the beast was relentless. In a final, desperate bid for survival, Maggie turned and ran, her footsteps echoing through the mansion like a death knell. She could hear the hound's heavy panting and the thud of its paws on the floor, growing ever closer. The walls seemed to close in around her, suffocating her with their oppressive presence. Just as she reached the front door, a searing pain shot through her leg, and she fell to the ground with a cry. Shadow loomed over her, its eyes blazing with a hunger that knew no bounds. As the darkness closed in, Maggie's screams echoed through the night, carried away by the wind. In the days that followed, Whispering Pines was gripped by a new wave of fear. The mansion stood silent and foreboding, its walls now echoing with the whispers of Maggie's fate. The legend of Shadow, the harbinger of doom, lived on, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of the light. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones, their voices trembling as they recounted the tale of Maggie's disappearance. Children who once played near the mansion now avoided it like the plague, their innocent laughter replaced by an eerie silence. Even the bravest of souls hesitated to venture near the haunted abode, their hearts heavy with dread. Among the few who dared to confront the mystery was Samuel, a retired detective with a penchant for solving cold cases. Samuel had heard the stories of Shadow and the mansion, but he was not one to be swayed by superstition. Armed with a steely resolve and his trusty revolver, he decided to unravel the truth behind the legends. Samuel's investigation led him to the town's archives, a dusty room filled with old newspapers and forgotten records. As he delved into the history of Whispering Pines, he discovered that the mansion's dark past was intertwined with a series of mysterious deaths and disappearances, all linked to the ominous hound. The deeper Samuel dug, the more he realized that the mansion was not just a relic of the past, but a beacon for something far more sinister. The legends spoke of a curse, a malevolent force that had taken root in the mansion and fed on the fear of the townsfolk. Shadow, the hound, was merely a manifestation of this ancient evil. Determined to put an end to the curse, Samuel gathered a group of townsfolk willing to brave the horrors that awaited them. Armed with torches and talismans, they ventured into the mansion, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and resolve. As they entered the mansion, the air grew heavy with an oppressive darkness, and the walls seemed to close in around them. The flickering torchlight cast eerie shadows, and the sound of their footsteps echoed through the halls like a mournful dirge. Each step brought them closer to the heart of the mansion, where the malevolent force awaited. In the grand ballroom, they found a hidden chamber, sealed with ancient runes and symbols. The air inside the chamber was thick with an otherworldly energy, and the hound's growls echoed through the walls. With trembling hands, Samuel and his companions began to break the seals, hoping to banish the evil that had plagued their town for centuries. As the final seal shattered, a blinding light filled the chamber, and the hound's howls grew louder, reverberating through the mansion. The malevolent force fought back, lashing out with tendrils of darkness, but the townsfolk held their ground, their resolve unyielding. With one final, deafening roar, the hound dissipated into the shadows, and the oppressive darkness lifted. The mansion seemed to sigh in relief, its walls no longer echoing with whispers of fear. The curse had been broken, and the town of Whispering Pines was finally free.